Welcome back to the Inside Public Accounting podcast. I'm Rob Brown, and with your co-host, Chelsea Summers, the voice and the face of Inside Public Accounting. We're talking today about the race. The rankings are live. We've been building up to this. The IPA 500 is here. And Chelsea, we're going to unpack who's in, who's out, who's made the major moves, aren't we?
That's right. We're not doing any major big picture trends today. We're going full horse race. This episode is where we name names, call out the climbers, and break down what the top 500 and then particularly what the top 100 tells us about the state of the profession.
And I'm sure people are waiting with bated breath, aren't they? They've been watching for these coming out, camping outside your premises and pushing you to bring these out. So let's start with the most exciting part and let's release the tension here. There's new names because we've got the top 500 and then we've got the top 100. So people want to be on this list. Who's cracked it this year for the first time? Let's start with those debutantes.
Yeah, we've got 6 firms who are making their debut this year.
Okay.
One of the most fascinating stories of the year is at number 61, Soren out of Meridian, Idaho. And this is not a traditional growth story. Soren is a newly branded platform that's already brought together 13 total firms under one name, and They have private equity support. It's a bold play, and I expect we'll be continuing to talk about them in the future.
That sounds like a real engine they've got going there, creating a juggernaut. So that's pretty wild. And they didn't just make the list. It's one thing to make the list, but it's another to get in, say, the top 50 or the top 75, isn't it? Right out the gate.
Exactly. And it speaks to how fast the game is changing. It's the same story at number 66, H&Co out of Coral Gables, Florida. It's another fast rising firm that has international roots, a strong M&A strategy, and a real global mindset.
I'm just thinking, to get into the top 100, are you pushing firms out of the top 100 or a lot of these firms actually getting absorbed?
A little of both. There's a couple that were on the bubble between the 100 and 200 that have moved down, and then there's several who have been acquired.
Yeah, I looked at some of the new entrants as well. I saw Archer Lewis at 81, based out of Miami, and Miller Kaplan in Burbank, California, there at 87. Red W, as we say, at LLC, Albuquerque, and number 100, Herbine and Company out of Reading, Pennsylvania. It's great to give these firms a shout out because this is historic. This is groundbreaking, not just big names, but new geographies, new business models, Chelsea.
Absolutely. The newcomers this year are not just all clustered on the coast. You've got the Southwest, Southeast, Mountain West. The IPA 100 is really growing more geographically diverse, and there's not just one way to make the list.
Yeah, there used to be hotbeds of growth and hotbeds of firms and traditional, like UK has always prided itself on being the finance capital of the world, but no longer. Accounting started in the UK, we always said, and we walk around in pinstripe suits and bowler hats. But it's a global game now, isn't it? And as you're pointing out, it's geographically diverse. And for every firm coming in, there are exits. Are there any big ones of note that you've spotted?
There are a couple huge exits this year. Markham, formerly one of the largest independently owned firms, was ranked at number 13. And is now part of CBIZ. That deal alone reshaped the top 10, helping CBIZ jump up several spots.
That's me, because top 10 is in itself a category, isn't it? If you can break the top 10, we've got the top 4. Even in the UK, it's very prestigious if you can break the top 10. And Moss Adams, I noticed that's another household name that doesn't appear to be in the list.
Yeah, they were acquired by Baker Tilly, which again shook up the top 10 completely. This was not just a shuffle, but it was a power play. Baker Tilly now leaps up the list, both in size and influence.
Then I saw Crossed, based out of Pasadena, is it? They were acquired by the Eisner Advisory Group. That's another major firm in a wave of consolidation.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, let's pivot to the fast-growing firms. We know how agile some of these firms are. We know how with private equity, they pivot on a dime. So there's organic growth, these fast-growing firms, that are taking P. Let's look at the organic side of things. Who topped that list? Because you measure for this, don't you?
We do. We rank the top 10 fastest growing through organic growth. And Smith & Howard takes the crown with impressive growth at 26.2%.
Organic growth. Wow.
They're number 1. Yes. Interestingly, they got a private equity backing from a 2022 deal with Broad Sky Partners. What's impressive is that 26% growth is internal. They're not just buying firms, they're scaling operations.
It is always a question about how to grow organically. And I did a podcast just recently for the Illinois State Society. They're running an article on how firms can stay independent. And one of the ways to stay independent is to grow organically. So you don't need the attraction of that private equity dollar. So Smith and Howard, that's really impressive, 26.2%. And they're not alone in these rankings, are they?
And they're not. 3 of the top 10 organic growth firms had private equity backing, but 7 of them didn't. But that 3 includes the top 2. It's proof that the PE firms are now optimizing from the inside, not just funding their acquisitions. And the average organic growth rate for those top 10 fastest growing firms was just over 18%.
It's amazing. We do hear that accounting's easy. The fish are jumping into the boat. There's so much demand for accounting services, and there is the scope to grow organically, but you've got to get your firm set up in that way. You've got to get the structure and the talent and everything else in place, the technology. So, okay, we've got organic growth. Let's look at consolidation and the M&A side of things. So let's include these mergers. Who's leading that growth race?
Yeah, there's 2 big stories here. Baker Tilly, who acquired Moss Adams, this acquisition moved them from number 10 last year to number 6 on our list, with a year-over-year growth rate of more than 95%. Also, CBIZ, thanks to the Marker merger, did 69.2% overall growth. And that includes 69%.
That's
3 deals
massive.
in 1 year, and capped off by one of the biggest combinations in the profession.
That's more than growth, isn't it? That's radical transformation.
Yeah, the same goes for Dean Dorton. They completed 3 mergers and posted 8.9% organic, very healthy organic growth, but 64% total growth, landing them firmly in the top 10 for overall expansion.
So the sense is that those firms that are really out there pushing it, there's a blend of organic growth and merging growth, consolidation growth. That's amazing. We mentioned H&Co earlier. That seems like another one to watch. They're doing some amazing things.
Absolutely. 13% organic growth and 50% overall growth on the back of 2 mergers. They're scaling very fast and playing the international card with some real sophistication.
Yeah. Now, this podcast is all about telling the stories behind the numbers, and we're giving a little bit of these stories here. So we want to give people an insight into what this means, but let's just talk about the massive leaps that are happening outside the top 100, because it's not just about the big boys, is it? There's a lot going on behind them, because this might point to the next year's top 100.
Absolutely. Some of the most exciting momentum this year came from firms that are climbing the ranks dramatically, not always through deals, but through smart strategic growth. So let's start with ATKG Advisors out of San Antonio. Last year, they ranked number 333. This year, 174. That's a 159 spot jump.
Wow.
They're part of the Ascend Network, which is backed by Alpine investors, and clearly they're putting that investment to work.
I'm hearing a lot of great things about Ascend, and I know some of the guys that are working there, but that is an absolute rocket. And that's not the only one, is it?
Correct. So Opsahl Dawson and Company, another Ascend firm, and from number 210 to number 148 this year. Again, strong growth, strategic positioning, and smart use of resources.
I've just been doing a series for my own show, Accounting Influencers. We just speak to accountants to be more relevant and informed. And we do shout out this brilliant podcast that you and I do here around how firms are just getting the right people in place and withstanding all the disruption of all of these other things going on. And you mentioned strategic positioning. It takes a lot to be strategic because so many firms are reactive. So fascinating stuff. Who else is making big moves, Chelsea?
Yeah, so Rosen, Saperstein, and Friedlander, based in Maryland, jumped from 293 to 225 this year. McConnelly and Asbury rose from 299 to 241, and then Stefano and Slack moved 50 spots from 334 to 284.
I'm just thinking some firms might be celebrating that they've gone up 1 or 2 in the rankings, but you're talking here not just incremental moves. These are statements of intent, aren't they? They're coming for the top 100, perhaps.
They are, and they're doing it in smart and deliberate ways. This is why we always tell people, don't just watch the top of the list, those big boys. Yeah. Some of the most competitive firms are still on the climb, and they're climbing really fast.
So let's add some meaning to this. All this movement, the new names, the exits, the drop-offs, the private equity, the big jumps. What do you feel this year's IPA 100 really tells us?
So I think it's telling us 2 things. One is that the traditional firm ladder is gone. The new entrants are building national scale with speed. Soren, H&Co, Archer Lewis. And then 2, private equity is really accelerating everything, but not just through deals. Organic growth backed by capital is reshaping what strategy even looks like at these firms.
That's the key soundbite here, organic growth backed by private equity. It seems to be the golden ticket here. And so what are the takeaways for our listeners who'll be in all kinds of different firms? Some of them having their own firms, some of them in employed positions. fascinated by this, but wondering what it means for them, what would you tell them?
I would say don't wait for the disruption to find you. Whether you're on the list or not, this is the time to clarify your model, your strategy, and your growth levers. The firms that are making headlines right now are the ones that moved early and moved smart.
It's a case of staying relevant. And I can imagine, Chelsea, there'll be some movement of talent between firms. If you're in a firm that's a little bit stagnant, or you've not made the list, or you don't figure in this, and you want a new challenge, you want some fresh legacy, fresh impetus, fresh contribution, there might be a bit of talent swapping going on, do you think?
I think that might be something that we do see in the next couple of years. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, we always ask our listeners to get in touch, or our audience, our watchers, wherever you tune in into the show, to bring us your questions. What else do you want to know? What else should we be covering? And these are coming in thick and fast as this show's really getting established, Chelsea. And here's one that we hear a lot. I'll put this to you. We didn't make the list this year. Is there a way to benchmark our data against the firms who did, even though we're not in the IPA 500 yet? Is that possible?
Yeah, there is. Inside Public Accounting offers benchmarking tools and customized reports tailored for firms that aren't in the 500, but still want to compare themselves. You can see how your firm stacks up on metrics like revenue per employee, partner ratios, or compensation trends. It's really one of the most actionable ways to prepare for future growth. And many firms are using that data to guide their strategic planning. If that's something your firm might be interested in, let me know, make a chat.
Yeah, we know that firms are the guardians of data. There's so much data they hold, both on themselves and their clients. And data is definitely the future gold that people are trading in. So yeah, fascinating stuff.
Yeah. So Rob, here's a question for you. On the last episode, we reported that 85% of top firms plan to increase outsourcing. So what are the risks that smaller firms should consider before following this trend?
This is such a great question. Have you noticed that the outsourcing and offshoring conversation has become so much more legitimate over the last year or two? When it first happened, there were some early adopters that would give it a try, and then they proved it. All the test cases were done. So now it's not a question of when, if it's when. 80 odd percent of firms are now factoring outsourcing and offshoring into what they're doing. So the question is, is there a risk for smaller firms to consider outsourcing, offshoring? I think the biggest risk is trying it without having a strategy. You talked earlier about strategic positioning. If you just think, oh, we should be doing it, let's jump on the bandwagon, but it's not part of a plan, then we call it in the UK going off with your gun half cocked. I don't know if you have that phrase there, because we don't even have guns, so I don't know how we did that. But offshoring, definitely, we know it improves margins, we know it improves capacity, but only if you've got the right systems, the right training in place, because it brings with it all kind of issues around data security, communication, cultural alignment. Do we offshore or outsource? Do we have a team overseas? These are all things that the smaller firms overlook. So get a good advisor, an outsourcing advisor, a good company that you trust, that you know about, that works. Start off maybe with a pilot program, learn fast, and make sure that you treat offshore or outsourcing as an extension of your team. So they're your brand. You're not just outsourcing tasks.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers the question. And a quick one for you, Chelsea. Question comes in, I'm not sure who from. We're growing, but we're just shy of the 6.4 million threshold. So presumably that's the threshold to get into the 500, right? Are there things we can do strategically now to guarantee we're in the 500 next year?
That's a great question. And honestly, it does come down to revenue. That 6.4 million threshold is the cutoff for revenue. So crossing that line is really the requirement.
And just to give you a little bit of international perspective, again, in the UK top 100, it's about 6.4 million pounds. So maybe $7-8 million. So it's not a lot. It just shows you how much smaller the UK market is. But yeah, it's the top 500, 6.4 million. Sorry, do continue. That's the cutoff.
Yes, there are ways that firms can be more intentional about getting to that $6.4 million threshold. Focus on growing your high margin services like advisory or client accounting, and look for ways to boost your top line revenue through smart pricing or niche positioning. Also, as always, make sure you submit your complete and accurate survey data. That's how we track the firm growth year over year, and it's your opportunity to really show where you're headed.
And what I'm excited about when you talk about showing where you're headed is you've got data for lots of years now, Chelsea, and you're starting to build up patterns, aren't you? And you are looking out for what's going to happen next year, what goes down, what goes up, what flatlines. So it's fascinating. And audience here, you can check out the IPA full list at insidepublicaccounting.com.
And next week's episode, we'll be taking a look at some of the trends in the data of the largest 500 firms. I'm looking at things like compensation, leverage models, revenue per employee, and the use of offshoring and outsourcing.
And that's where we really start to get behind the headline figures. Looking forward to that. As an audience, we really thank you for tuning in. For sure, subscribe, share with a colleague. Let us know what you think of what we're doing here. Do you have any thoughts on who's making the bold moves in accounting right now? Is your firm involved? Were you integral to getting your firms into the list? What part were you playing? It's been a pleasure entertaining you today with the stories behind the numbers. And we really appreciate our audience, don't we, Chelsea?
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening. And congratulations to the firms that made the IPA 500. You earned it this year.